This next video comes to, well, it's basically our third video in the range of the maddest moves ever played. And I've got clips from 3 games here, and we're concentrating on the end game. Now, the end game has a bit of a reputation of being the most boring part of the game, and that's completely unfounded, as I hope I will show you here. And we're going to start with maybe the best, but you can be the judge of that. Which of these 3 clips do you think is the best one? And if you haven't seen this game, where have you been? I'm sure most chess players around the world have seen this, but it's really worth showing you again. We have Topalov with the white pieces against Alexei Shirov, one of my favorite players of the black pieces. And Topalov here plays king to g1. And it does look like a rather boring position. Black is 2 pawns up in the ending, but one very important thing to note here is where the bishops are. Black has a light squared bishop, it works on the light squares, and white has a dark squared bishop. So we have opposite coloured bishops. And it's well known that opposite coloured bishops endings basically can become drawn in a majority of cases, even if one side is a couple of pawns up, which Shirov is here. Now, if, for example, Shirov just tries to push the pawns with like a3, white can move his king very quickly into the center. For example, a2, king to e3, and now, is there any way that black can make progress? I don't think so. King to f5, so what? White just sits here and waits. So Shirov came up with, and I have to say, this is probably the most amazing move ever played in chess. Do you agree? Bishop to h3. What a move. What a fantastic idea. And this offers the bishop in the ending to a pawn for nothing. Why on earth did Shirov play this? He played this move in order to get his king into the center of the board with tempo. So, for example, after pawn takes bishop, king to f5 is Shirov's idea. He wants to use his king and his pawns to try to win the game. As we saw in the last variation, had he played a quieter move, this may not be possible because white would already have the king on e3, and white's king on e3 would be shouldering the black king away, stopping the black king from entering into the zone. The game continued, king f2, and now king e4. d4 is one idea that's going to be coming. White played bishop takes f6, d4 did occur, and now the d4 pawn is blocking the bishop. So black can try to play pawn all the way to a1. There's only one way to stop this. Bishop to e7, stopping the a pawn. And if white can also get his king in front of the other pawn, it should be okay. There's only one way to win here for Shirov. He must have seen this in advance. King to d3, fantastic. The king is coming to c2, where it's going to support both pawns. Bishop c5, and in actual fact, the king doesn't go to c2 now because you lose your pawn. It comes to c4, gaining a tempo on the white bishop. Bishop e7, and now king to b3. And look how that king has done this amazing walk into the position, and this is now winning. Topalov resigned. I'll let you work out this position for yourselves, but it should be clear to see that the a pawn and the d pawn are too hard to stop. Have a look at it yourself, analyze this position a little bit, but let's now move on to my second example of an amazing move that was played in the ending. And we're now going to come to Viktor Korchnoi, and he's playing Averbach. And this was another top-level game. Korchnoi played rook to c4 check, and here Averbach played king to d2. Now, a nice short tactic here. If you want to pause the video, see if you can see it for yourself. Harry, the h-pawn, is going to be the hero. But if we play h2 at the moment, trying a queen, white can defend with rook to b1. And that rook will come across and maybe even take poor old Harry. So we can't do that. So the move that Korchnoi now must have really shook Averbach's life with, rook to c1. A brilliant move. One of the maddest moves ever played. That rook can be captured by two different pieces, the king or the knight. But after either piece taking that rook, let's say knight takes, it's the same thing. Black just plays pawn to h2, and now rook to b1 doesn't help because there's a traffic jam. That knight there is in the way. So Harry will become a queen, fulfill his lifelong ambition, and that queen will win the game. So rook c1, a fantastic move, and the same goes to king takes c1. It's really a blockade tactic, this one. The pawn goes to h2 and to h1 yet, on the next move, winning the game. So another brilliant move, one of my favourites. And this now brings us to the last example I'm going to pick of the most amazing endgame moves of all time. We'll have a look at this on the white side. And this is a game between another very famous player, Lev Albert of the white pieces. And in this tricky ending, black played knight to f6, stopping the d-pawn, or trying to stop the d-pawn from advancing. And black may have thought that he's quite safe here, but he must have been absolutely knocked off his chair by the next move. What did white play? White now played knight takes c5, giving up the knight for one pawn. Black took that knight, and what is the real idea behind this move? The real idea is another sacrifice, b4. And the point of this move is that white will get a second pass pawn, either the a pawn or the c pawn. And the black knight will not be able to deal with the d pawn and the second pass pawn. So black's position becomes helpless. If the black king was in a safer position, like on e6, black would be winning here. But the black king cannot help the defense of these pawns. What should black capture with? Well, if black captures with the c pawn, we just play c5, and again, one of these pawns will queen. The knight cannot deal with them. In the actual game, black played a takes, but now the a pawn starts running, and there's no way to defend this. e4 was tried from black. Another option, something like knight to d7, doesn't help. We go b6, knight to here, we go a7, and after something like e4, we go d7. And this line in particular demonstrates that the black knight cannot guard the queening squares of both pawns. And after it takes on d7, we get a queen up yet again. So the game continued with white winning by queening one of these pawns. And we can see here there's still a little bit of work to be done, but the position is now winning, and white went on to win. After e2, white played queen to f8. And yes, there's a little bit of work to do here, but the d-pawn was very strong, and this was the only way that white could win. So another fantastic idea, this double breakthrough. Knight takes c5, followed by b4. Absolutely stunning stuff. So which of those did you prefer? Which was your favourite endgame finish out of those three, of my pick of the most amazing endings of all time? Did you think they're all rubbish? I hope not. They gave me a bit of joy, and I hope they gave you a bit of joy. So in the next one, the next video in this range, we're going to look at some daring defense. So I hope you're enjoying this range, and I hope you're getting some inspiration for your own games.